We are live.
To Evening Rants, everybody. This is a special episode. It's a little bit different. We're not going to be talking about the current events. We're not going to be talking about news, but these are current events and news. If you're interested in being the healthiest you ever, if you're interested in science, if you're interested in sport nutrition, if you're interested in a lot of different things, this is a guy I've known since I believe we met in 2001 at dinner at the Show of Strength in Atlanta. And since then, we've been friends. I was actually at the first ever ISSN conference when I owned Scivation. And I believe current president of ISSN, Jose?
Yeah, well, I run the entire organization. I'm the CEO, and then we appoint presidents and VPs to do some of the conference management. But in terms of running the business of ISSN, that would be me.
So you are the CEO of Science, literally the most credible organization that we have in the industry. Jose Antonio, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. This is a treat, and we are very, very respectful of your time, and we really appreciate you being here. So much to cover, man.
Hey, I want to thank you guys because as you said to me in an email, Mark, I am an old man, and I do go to bed early. I'm one of those, people are like, and here's the funny part, people are like, how come you send me text messages at 4:30 and 5 in the morning? I'm like, because that's when I'm awake. And then they're like, well, if I text you at like 10 o'clock, you never respond. I'm like, because I'm asleep. So the fact that you normally have this at 8 p.m., I was thinking, holy shit, I don't even think my brain works at 8 p.m. I'm usually watching some stupid show on Netflix. So I do appreciate you guys letting me do this in the middle of the day because, my brain is at like 70% right now. So that's good.
There's so many topics. I had a list that would take us 12 hours. We're going to be respectful, keep it to 45 to 60 minutes. But one of the first stories, this is something I always tell people about, is that Jose we went to lunch after we had that dinner at the Show of Strength, but Doug Kalman was there. Yep. I believe a couple of my colleagues from Weeder, Laia Clark was there. And I remember you told me about this book you wrote, and it was about the genetic differences between populations, such as West Africa, such as Eastern Europe, how different populations have different strength attributes. For example, West Africans are kind of badass athletes. Eastern Europeans are strong. You wrote a book about that, and I believe you were the first human being to ever get canceled.
Yeah, what's funny about that? It's one of those things where, don't let your eyes deceive you because the world, humans, we like to recognize patterns. If you watch any track and field event, watch the 100-meter dash, it's typically the winners are typically Black Americans or Jamaicans or anyone of West African descent. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
And you do have a smattering. There's sometimes a European or a white American, like Matthew Bowling. He's at University of Georgia. He's a super fast white guy. There's even I forget the name. There's a Chinese sprinter, super fast. But those are the exceptions. Those are not the rules. So, when we look at the world and we see these patterns and we say what we see, people are like, oh, you can't say that. It's no different than, individuals of East European descent or European descent, especially Northern Europe, tend to dominate strength sports, strongman type events. And then you could maybe throw in the Samoans and the Tongans in there. So what's weird is that groups of people do not all have the same talents and abilities. And I think for some reason, it's hard for some people to understand when, in fact, our eyes tell us this every day. I mean, it's just one of those things. But the book you're referring to is called Speed Demons. And we went actually through the science of why individuals, Blacks of West African descent, tend to dominate in those sports. And Blacks of East African descent, as you see, tend to do really well in the endurance events. But obviously, when you're talking about world-class levels of in track and field, you're going to see a smattering of different people from different countries. But certainly in track, because the beauty of track is it's super democratic, meaning you don't need money to run. Maybe you need a pair of shoes, but everyone in the world can run. Running is the most competitive sport, mainly because everybody can do it. You don't need equipment. You don't need this. You don't need that. Just need a pair of shoes and go out and run.
Argument can be made for soccer as well. Football, as they call it everywhere but America. All you need is a ball. I remember taking my licensing courses at the USSF, and they had videos of kids playing in Africa, kids playing in Brazil in hallways, which is futsal. And that's where I think the athletes really breathe. That's where another whole podcast we could do is club sports and how it's kind of killed sports because we price out the real talent. You know what I mean? Like the real talent can't afford, inner city kid can't afford a 20,000 a year ECNL league. So that's where you see a lot of kids flourish in those leagues. Basketball in the hood, for example, right?
Yeah, there's some sports. I think you see it a lot in baseball, softball, and soccer, that there are travel leagues now. And hey, my wife and I coached our kids. They played travel softball. They actually they're a very good team, and there are equipment and money issues related to that. And unfortunately, that's just the way the sport is, because softball and baseball, it's not cheap. You need
very expensive.
You need a field. You need a bat. I mean, I remember when I first bought my daughter a bat, and I didn't know anything about softball at the time. She was like 5 years old. And I went to Kmart or Walmart or something, and I came home with a bat. It was like this pink Jenny Finch bat. And my wife's like, how much did that cost? I'm like, $150. She's like, oh my God, $150. And now bats are a hell of a lot more expensive than $150. So at the time, I'm like, I don't know what a bat costs. My kid wanted it, looked pretty, so I'm getting it for her.
That's such a dad move. Well, it's pretty. Kids smiling. There's really, like, we lose track of finance when it comes to our kids smiling. Well, the kid's smiling. I'm gonna buy this bat because I can't deal with my kids being sad. You know, I'm like, you're sad. When my wife would be like, shut up, you're not getting it. Yeah, there's a semblance of order. But so that book's fascinating. Is it still available? Can people still buy it?
Here's the funny part. We tried to publish it as a book like for years and years and years, and it got rejected. But then, and I don't remember the author, you guys might remember, someone else basically published it, and I forget what the name of it was, a fairly famous author. And I'm thinking, I'm reading and I'm like, wow, this sounds exactly what we wrote. I mean, so basically someone scooped us, I guess, when it was more politically acceptable to say it. God. But yeah, someone beat us to the punch by taking our idea and actually publishing it. So
now we need we need a case study on Caitlin. We need a case study on Caitlin Clark. That's what we need. We need a case study on her. So I mean, I'm waiting for your book to come out about biological men and women's sports. When's that coming out, Jose? I think you're too old for that smoke.
I'll tell you this: men have no business being in women's sports. It's actually, to me, it's a very simple issue. To find it controversial has always been bizarre to me, because there are entire chapters dedicated in exercise science textbooks how there's a significant male versus female difference, and it's a huge difference. In fact, if you look at, and I'm a sort of a semi track and field fan, if you look at track and field records, by the age of 14 and 15, elite high school boys are already better than the best women in the history of sports. So you take the best female sprinter, FloJo, 1988, I believe she set the record, 10.49 seconds. Mm-hmm. There are probably 12 guys in South Florida that are already faster than her that are like 14 years old. You know, so it's insane. So imagine these guys, let's say they decide to transition when they're 18. It's like, you know what? You're going to kill FloJo's record. It's the idea that men and women are interchangeable. And I know this sort of delves into politics, but really it's biology. It's biology. Men and women are not interchangeable. They're not.
No, I don't. And hormone. So while we're on this, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but like they claim that by giving hormones, for example, let's say you take me at 43 years old and you start giving me estrogen. Okay.
Like,
I mean, or you even take.
You'd look so strange after a little bit.
I don't even want to picture it.
It would be so creepy as fuck. It really.
But
would.
You know what? But the thing is,
let's try it.
It's actually happened that New Zealander who broke the women's power lifter, who was a male power lifter, actually did that in their late 30s, I believe, and was just crushing women left and right. And it wasn't a world-class male, but the thing is, an average male quickly becomes a world-class female. And you can't just hormone that. You can't just give somebody estrogen and say, boom, you're a woman. It doesn't work like that. There's bone density, there's reaction time, there's the Q angle of the hips. There's so many variables. And that's what makes us special as human beings. I think it's something that should be celebrated. And I do, as someone who has a daughter, and Jose, you have daughters, right?
Yeah, twin daughters. Yeah. They're 24 years old. Yeah.
So, I mean, and also like, and a lot of the conservative right is like, well, until the women stop. Well, the thing is, then their career's over. They're going to be canceled. You saw what happened to those girls in West Virginia. Until the governor stepped in or the AG stepped in, they were banned from competing. So you have girls, and I'm sure in softball, your daughters were probably practicing for hours a week. It was a full-time job. Hours. So imagine you're training your whole life from the age of eight or younger on for 40 plus hours a week. And you're going to say, I'm not going to do this because I'm taking a political stand. No, you have to go along with it. And hopefully somebody in society stands up and says, hey, wait a second. There's something wrong with this. And you're going to see injuries. You're going to see collisions because, again, bone density, Q angle of the hip. You look at the ACL tear risks in soccer. The girls soccer are the number one ACL tears. They have more ACL tears than anyone. And so if you have a strong, more aggressive, more stable male, and I'm going to say stable because of the hip structure, you're going to see ACL tears double, triple, quadruple. And I'm just looking out for the safety and fairness. It's just not fair. And so I'm with you on that. I think anybody who isn't politically motivated is with you. Anybody who knows anything about biology and science is with you. But for some reason, it's become hot button. And I know everybody's probably tired of talking about it. I just want to get your scientific opinion because you have no kids playing right now. You have no skin in the game. You're just giving an honest scientific opinion.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Alan, go on.
I would argue that there's psychology involved in it too. Like a young male that's learning how to deadlift, like the bar comes off differently from the ground. Like our mentality, especially when testosterone is introduced to it, is an attack mentality. So there's a huge difference between like somebody standing up, like we'll use deadlifting as an example. They stand up on the bar and they're ready to rip that shit the fuck off the ground. They're going to pull it so hard it creates a vacuum. You know what I mean? Like literally. Whereas women tend to not have that type of explosive power ever. So even if somebody transitions in their adulthood, but they've been training like this for half their life, their approach to the activity is going to be more aggressive than a woman's would, just because we're used to having the bar come up. Like Jose said it perfectly, where these people, most of the time when they transition, their performance actually goes down and still crushes the women. Like their performance does go down because they don't have as much testosterone, but just the training modality, the reps that they get in while being stronger. It's so much involved. It's just weird thing that society's doing nowadays just for political purposes.
I've actually trained kind of as a female before. When I was in my late 20s, when I got diagnosed with low testosterone.
I'm so interested.
Well, my testosterone was 77, which Jose will tell you total test at 77. My free test was in the literally negative range, right? Like terrible.
What age was this?
27. My endocrine system crashed.
Holy shit.
That's why I went on TRT. When you met me, Jose, I was natural and I was anti-drug. Like I was completely anti-steroid. But I had to use them. And boy, do I love using them. But anyway, enough about my steroid use. Yeah, thank God for that. But so when I had terribly low testosterone, granted, I wasn't introducing estrogen, I was still strong as hell. I was still shredded. I was still in shape. You knew me. I was always in shape. It didn't affect, it didn't even affect my sex performance. I'm sorry, TMI. I'm just giving you guys a baseline of what it's like to have really low T and be a male who competes in bodybuilding. I just didn't really have the drive for sex. Does that make sense? I can rise for the occasion, but I really didn't care to. And then testosterone just gave me that drive back. So very little changed for me when I had extremely low testosterone. I still looked great. I still competed. I was still able to perform. I still did very athletic things, but I didn't have that drive. I didn't have that aggression. And so I think that just eliminating one of so many variables that makes us different, it doesn't level the playing field. It doesn't even come close to leveling the playing field.
No, that's true. And in fact, Alan had alluded to just, basically the generation of strength and power, males versus females. If you look at the field events, the shot put, discus, hammer throw, those events, I mean, high school boys already exceed the best women by age 15. So it doesn't take long. And that's why, even when, stories of high school boys beating the best, U.S. soccer team, a female soccer team, it's not surprising because by age 15, most boys are actually already faster. Now, the testosterone thing, this is interesting because it segues into what I will call how many scientists are quite ideologic. So you guys have heard of the American College of Sports Medicine.
Yes.
And this will transition to why the ISSN was formed. So back when I was in college, I was in college when Ronald Reagan was president. Mark, I don't even know if you were alive.
I was born when Ronald Reagan came into office.
Holy shit. Okay.
1980. 1980.
So I was in college. So this is interesting. So I was in college. You were getting bored. And here's the funny thing.
You might be my father, actually. My mom got around, dude.
You know what? Your mom's really good, by the way.
Jesus.
I will use in my classes. I like to use references historically to presidents to get a gauge to see where students who were born in the year 2000, if they have any idea what I'm talking about. And let's just say this, it won't surprise you. They have no idea. They're like, Reagan, that seems like, was that World War II? But anyways, so 1980s, American College of Sports Medicine comes out with a position stand saying the use of androgens is both ineffective and dangerous based on no data. 10 years later, they come out, they change their position stand and they say, oh, it's now it's effective, but it's still dangerous. And I'm like, oh, God, they're still wrong. And that's why I ended up publishing a paper middle of 1990s in the Canadian Journal of Applied Physiology. And the basic conclusion was it depends on the androgen, but you can take certain androgens at certain doses for certain durations, get bigger, faster, stronger, but no side effects. That was the gist of it. Now, here's the funny part. That paper got rejected by about 7 journals. And back then, this is what sucks. You had to mail the frickin' paper. Mail it.
Damn.
There's a 2-year period where we're mailing it. It comes back, reject, mail it again. It comes back, reject. So the last rejection, I was like, fuck, no one wants this paper. But here's the funny part. No one rejected it based on science. They rejected it because they said, we can't publish this in our journal because it's a political hot potato, which is weird. It's like, wow. So taking androgens, I guess this coincides with, baseball players taking it.
Yes, that was that time.
Yes. So the last journal, they rejected it. And I'm like, fuck. We get a letter in the mail from them like a month or 2 later, like, you know what? We've decided to accept it. We were wrong in rejecting it based on politics. Your science is correct. In fact, all my friends in exercise science were like, well, we know you're right. We just don't want to say it publicly because we don't want to get shamed. Because if you say anything about back in the 90s, if you said anything about anabolic steroids or androgens being safe and effective, people are like, well, are you okay? I'm like, well, just look at the data. The data tells you that. So they finally published it. And that was sort of the beginning of me getting a target on my back because large organizations, particularly in American College of Sports Medicine, tended to take a very ideological view on things, and this transitions into supplements. So sports nutrition, sports supplements. In the year 2000, myself and Jeff Stout give a talk at ACSM. We talk about supplements. I'll be honest, it was one of the most boring talks I've ever given in my life. And after the talk, half the audience hated us. The other half, who tended to be more bodybuilderish, loved us. So it was really weird. It's like, wow, the bodybuilders like what we said because they know, because they've done this. And then the sort of non-bodybuilders think we're full of shit and we're selling snake oil. But it was the absolute vehemence. I mean, people were pissed. They were like, I remember this guy, professor, University of South Dakota. He was like, I can't believe you guys are even talking. You guys are so full of shit. I can't believe ACSM even let you in here. So here's what happened. This is cancellation before cancellation was on social media.
Again.
Someone made a complaint, and we had an ethics investigation forced upon us. They investigated myself and Jeff Stout for, quote, ethics violations. I'm thinking, what the hell is this? Letters to our universities, all this bullshit. I'm like, okay, I want to know who's accusing. Of course, it was anonymous, so we never knew who accused us. And then eventually they find out there's no evidence that we were doing anything unethical. But it sort of laid the groundwork for why we decided to form ISSN, because this ideological view of science was like, wow, this is just weird. And I'll end up with one more story. At that same conference, myself and Jeff Souter at a cocktail party, and the president of the organization walks up to us. And she says, boys, she was a diminutive woman. She says, boys, if you want to have a career, I wouldn't study supplements.
Really?
And in my brain, I have this internal dialogue, and I'm looking at Jeff. I'm thinking, did she say not to study this? I mean, isn't that what scientists do? They study stuff.
You study, yeah.
Right. That is indeed what she said. And what pissed me off is that woman got money from Gatorade, which we know is a supplement. Mm-hmm. And she had the gall to tell us, you know what? You shouldn't study supplements if you want to have a career, which is kind of a weird veiled threat. So what did Jeff and I do? Jeff left academia. He get this, and you'll find this funny. He moved to Florida to work with Rexall Sundown, which is part of Metrics GNC.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yes, in Royal Numico. And then he got me a job. I worked in marketing for Metrics and switched over to Rexall Sundown, working at the same company. That's how I moved to Florida. So it was all these little things that happened that if people just weren't ideologic, there'd be no ISSN. I'm not even sure I'd be in Florida because that's the reason I moved down here. It wasn't for academia. But this ideological view of science, as you well know, without delving into politics, is actually quite common. That's what's so weird. I'm like, why is this so common? And people are like, why do you think this happens? I'm like, you know what? I remember when my dad would come home from work. He was a physician. He was trained in the Philippines, but he had a successful practice in Washington, D.C. He would come home from work and he would say this, God, there's so many stupid people around.
That's Alan right there. Yeah.
I'm thinking, you know what? I think my dad was right. I never understood why he'd come home pissed, but now I know why he was pissed.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the goal of science is to disprove your hypothesis, or at least attempt to. And that's how you find the truth. That's why when they said, again, not getting political, when they said, trust the science, that's the least scientific thing you could say. Scientists should never trust the science. They should be like, okay, this is what we're demonstrating. The science demonstrates or shows this right now, but let's try and disprove this to make sure that this theory is correct. We go back and forth on supplements throughout the years, from branched amino acids to glutamine to all these different supplements that there's been ups and downs. There's papers that say this, papers that say that. And what we do in this industry, which is always fascinating, is the YouTube scientists do a great job of simply cherry picking. I could take any supplement on the market. I could either make it sound like a scam, or I can make it sound like the greatest thing, utilizing science, because based on the study groups, based on the methodology, based on how you collect the data. A lot of people don't understand how you collect the data and interpret the data is another thing that can, and there's been a lot of issues in the science world, in the supplement world, where they take the study, they take the data, and they use the way that they want to express the opinion they want to get towards based on their funding. So we've had issues with that in the past with a lot of different ingredients. So I look at science as, we need more data. We need to question more things. Nothing is certain. And that's what really gets me about today when they say, well, the science is conclusive. It's like, well, no, it could be demonstrating something more so than the other thing, but science is always evolving. And I mean, for example, I always use this example. In the early 1900s, if you have a mental issue, like the first thing they did, the science showed frontal lobotomy. They put a hole in your head and they did this. Thank God we questioned that science. Science evolves, technology evolves, methods evolve. And it's sad to see, but I mean, we've had that all along. But if you look at who started a lot of this, like a lot of the studies are funded by Gatorade, but at the end of the day, Gatorade did block a lot of things, and they did pay for a lot of studies and a lot of people, and they were kind of like a huge lobbyist group. Am I mistaken in that at the time?
No, it's interesting. If you go back to the 80s, when I attended the American College of Sports Medicine fairly regularly, there was a very much a bias, maybe, I don't know if that's the right word, towards Gatorade. Gatorade was funding a lot of studies. We certainly know sports drink, depending on the context, will work better than water if you're, let's say, doing aerobic training for more than 60 to 75 minutes. We know that. But it wasn't so much that they were showing that sports drinks were helpful. It was this weird anti-protein stance that they were taking, that, protein is bad for your kidneys. You don't need that much protein. And yet,
so fucking sad.
Yeah, it was. I'm thinking, okay, well, you need protein because you have to recover from training. How are you going to recover? You can't just, suck down sugar and water and sodium and potassium. You have to recover. And from the 1980s till about today, it's taken that long for the idea that protein is needed, not just for strength power athletes. It's needed actually. In fact, you might argue it's needed more for athletes that engage in endurance events because they beat the shit out of their bodies. If you're running 120 miles a week, I don't think there's any amount of weight training that is comparable to what your body goes through running 120 miles a week. So for them, it's just simple recovery. Now, here's what's funny about the protein issue. When I remember attending a ACSM conference, and they typically would make fun of bodybuilders. So they put a picture of a bodybuilder up there and they'd say, no one's ever died of small muscles, sarcopenia. So no one's ever
actually,
died of small muscles.
Yes, they have.
Right. But it was one of those things where they had this
demonstrably false.
Yeah.
Like hundreds of thousands of people a year.
Millions.
Right. But it shows how how they can be sort of captured by these weird, ideologies, and that ACSM had this anti-resistance training, anti-protein stance for such a long time. And it really didn't change till after the year 2000. So here's the thing, even now, okay, in the middle, and this is sort of a sidebar, but when I did a lot of those high protein diet studies in the mid 20 teens, I'll be honest, when I was doing it, I'd have this internal dialogue with myself saying, God, what a fucking waste of time. Of course, it's not going to make you fat. Of course, it's not going to harm your kidneys. Of course, it's not. However, apparently 99% of clinicians disagree with me. So I'm thinking, okay, I guess I have to do this to convince the 99% who I think are wrong. So we do it. It doesn't make you fat. It doesn't harm your kidneys. We even follow up for 2 years with these bodybuilders. Nothing happens. They're all lean. They're all healthy. But even 2 years, get this, Al and Mark, 2 years, apparently, well, now you got to do a 5-year study. Now you got to do a 10-year study. I'm like, I'll be dead. If I keep doing these long studies, I'll just be dead, right? So they keep moving the goalpost. And I'm thinking, you know what? Stick to your 0.8 grams per kilo of protein. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, so the recommendations to ISSN, I believe the easy way to kind of express it is for athletes, you round up to a gram per pound just to make it easy for people to digest. Is that in the position statement? I believe it was a gram per pound.
Yeah, well, at the low end, it's like 1.5 or 1.6 grams per kilo. But most of us, if you ask most of us, we'll say just do a gram per pound. Try to hit that. But if you do more, that's even better.
Lean body mass or total weight?
Total weight.
Total weight. So what if someone's more, we have a lot of, Alan's base is a lot of obese people. That's why, a lot of our supplement strategies are weight management.
Right.
Looking at that, what if someone is, let's say 100 pounds overweight? They're 300 pounds and they should be 200, let's say. Just
these are men, women, doesn't matter.
Sure. What do they identify as that day? Here we go back to that. They're fluid. They're gender fluid.
Gender fluid. Okay. Here's the thing. I actually have them aim for what their current body weight is. And more often than not, they don't hit it, but if they get below it and it's towards what they want their target body weight to be, that's a good thing. Now, it'll be hard, put it this way. The behavior of eating 300 grams of protein for a 300-pound obese person, I would almost say is virtually impossible. Not many can do it. But if they're aiming for 300 and they hit 200, I'd be like, wow, that's pretty goddamn good. So you can't, if aliens came down to Earth and wanted to fatten us up and eat us like cattle, they're not going to give us protein to make us big and fat. Yes. They're going to give us donuts, bagels, carbs, fat. I could get so fat on carbs and fat so easily. But if you're going to give me whey protein, I ain't getting fat. I'll just be hot all day and I'll sweat.
So let's go there. Whey protein. A lot of people look at it as a supplement. I look at it as a food. How would you describe whey protein? And would you recommend people take it? What are the pros and the cons?
Well, it's funny. I actually refer to it both as a supplement and as a food. It kind of depends who I'm talking to. I think because there's so much data on whey protein, I think the big pro is what it's high in all the essential amino acids. It's easily digestible. Although there are some people who say they just can't handle milk-based protein, which is fine. Try something else. easily digestible. It increases muscle protein synthesis in the acute sense, more so than anything else. Now, there are things we could argue about that, whether that matters. But it's probably the single best protein in terms of muscle protein, the muscle protein synthetic effect. I don't see anything wrong with it, other than the only complaint I hear is my gut feels funny, my belly, I can't do it. So they'll go for a plant-based thing like pea protein, rice protein, or whatever.
Like ambrosia planta, Jose. Ambrosia planta.
There
That's
you
what we
go.
go for. I have it right here, just in case. So I completely agree. I also think a lot of people miss out on the immune benefits of whey protein.
Yep.
Will Brink had a fantastic paper on glutathione and how whey protein is actually, I don't know, he said more. I didn't read into it that much beyond what he wrote. NAC is taken due to its ability to enhance glutathione. Whereas whey protein, he says, at least Will Brink claims it's stronger than NAC for glutathione. And we learned a lot about that during, 2020 and all the, viruses flying around, that it's actually immune beneficial.
No, actually, it's funny you bring that up, because I never, ever bring that up, because I guess the audience I talk to, they train hard, good body composition, they're healthy. So it's almost to that group, they're like, well, we're healthy to begin with. They never ask about the health benefits, but I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a lot of data going back like 20 or 30 years showing health benefits of whey. So that's good.
That's fantastic.
It is.
All right. So I just, that's good to know. So here's one thing that we get a lot of, and again, in consideration, I'm just mowing down these topics. You look at the FDA supplement regulation. Now, you and I, we just got audited last week, passed with flying colors, got our license, of course, re-upped at our warehouse, not even our production facility. So the FDA, not only do we have NSF compliance certification for where we manufacture our products for Ambrosia, which is also NSF Sport, BSCG, MTS Nutrition. We have all that stuff, but our actual facility is actually GMP registered, GMP certified by the state of Ohio. The government regulates the hell out of supplements. The thing is, I will argue, and I know you're more of a less government kind of guy, but I do like some oversight. There's not enough FDA to take down the people who need to be taken down. The SARMs, the pro steroids on the market. And granted, we could argue for legalizing everything, not the platform for that. Right. But being sold in a supplement store, people are going to assume that it's not a steroid, that it's not going to, cause potential. Like, you have people from when they were selling hormones on the market who had liver failure, kidney issues. You had a lot of bad things. At the time, I believe there were like 12 agents to cover the entire country for supplements when that was happening. So I actually welcome the FDA with open arms. Sure, it takes a lot of our day going through stuff with them, and they normally come unannounced. And we don't have the manpower to be like, okay, here's a full day, but we do it anyway. So I want to get your opinion. So the supplements, people say supplements are unregulated. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I think, I teach a sports nutrition class, and I tell the students, I say, when you graduate and you're out of here, and if you say any of these three things, I will tell people, I don't know you. You were never in my class, and you did not go to the school. Number one, protein's bad for your kidneys. If you say that, you're an idiot. Number two, lactic acid causing delayed onset muscle soreness. Please do not tell people that. There's no such thing as lactic acid in your body. It's lactate plus hydrogen ions, and it doesn't cause delayed onset muscle soreness. And number three, the supplement industry is unregulated or not regulated. I mean, certainly we're all aware that Bill Clinton signed that bill in 1994, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. I think this is, DSHEA. I think the challenge is this. I mean, you allude to it, that the FDA is understaffed.
Yes.
Okay. Well, they need to do something about that. That's something us as consumers of these products, and you as a producer, that's on them in a way. So
yes,
the idea, I tell people, I sometimes think it's overregulated with even with things like what they do with you guys. The analogy I give is, if I drive down the Florida Turnpike and I'm going 85, there are cars and motorcycles going way faster than me. Now, I know the speed limit on the Florida Turnpike is, quote, regulated. There are laws against going over 70 miles an hour, but you can't have a state trooper everywhere. So it's
Yeah.
really, we're talking about enforcement, not regulation. So when people say it's not regulated, I'm like, no, it's regulated. What your issue is, not you per se, but when people post this online, I'm like, you're talking about lack of enforcement, which I think I agree with that. It's like, they should enforce this stuff. Now, if they can't, they can't. You can't have a state trooper at every mile marker. So
Right.
it's okay. So what's the solution? Well, in a way that this is a federal solution, right? This has to go to either the Congress or the executive branch or whatnot. So, and then the question is, why is the FDA consistently understaffed? It's been like that for decades. Why is that?
It's a good question. I don't know. I've had nothing but good experiences because I tend to not break the law. And I realize in this personal responsibility, I'm producing a consumable good. It is my responsibility to ensure the safety of my consumers and to ensure that we're delivering not only on the quantitative, but the qualitative, not necessarily on the quality, on the qualitative. That's how qualitative means if you test it, it has the ingredient. Quantitative means how much of the ingredient. When I say qualitative, I mean that when you take it, you know you're not going to get poisoned. So I want to make sure that we ensure quality.
Always a plus.
Always a plus. But unfortunately, you do have, in every industry, whether it's the print business, the t-shirt business, whether it's food, like how many home bakeries, like there was and this is why you got, but Cali Muscle, who's an influencer, was literally making cookies out of his kitchen and shipping them, like literally making him in his kitchen, bagging him in a spare room by his mother-in-law, and just breaking every health code. That guy needs to be shut down. But yet you have someone who, we just posted our last run of MTSY. You posted a video of how clean and awesome these facilities are. And I think people need to realize we can't lump the bad guys with the good guys. It's like doing it with race, right? Yeah. Like you see a video of some Polish Jew going and destroying some shit. You're going to be like, oh, Mark's evil because that guy is Polish. No, just because we're in an industry where there are a couple bad apples.
I like how you pick Polish Jew, not like, Swiss Jew or.
Well, I'm a Polish Jew, so that's why it makes sense.
Okay.
Which means I'm cheap, but I'm too dumb to know what to spend money on anyway. So, I mean. Yeah, I think that's true. Now, and when looking at supplements, now you've obviously been a part of so many different supplements and studies, and you've probably authored hundreds of studies on supplements.
Yeah, I have roughly about 130 publications. Most of them are on supplements. The initial part of my academic research career was actually in muscle hypertrophy, but really for the last couple decades, it's really been in sports nutrition and supplements. So the crazy part is if you go before the year 2000, the science, the actual academic study of sports nutrition and supplements in particular was kind of non-existent before the year 2000. So you hit the year 2000, the ISN has its first conference in 2004. And really, there's been this exponential growth in sports supplement and sports nutrition research. Now, what's funny, if you were to count the number of scientists in the world, most of them in the US and maybe the UK, but let's say in the world who do sports nutrition, sports supplement research, you're talking maybe 200 people. It's a tiny, tiny science category. And that's why, sometimes I feel like, it's the movie 300 where the sports nutrition science people, we're the 300. And then you got like a million Persians coming down. Those are all the clinicians who don't know shit about nutrition. And it's like, hey, I'll get the first 10. And then I get killed. And then you get the next 10. And then before you know it, you're fighting this weird battle against just masses of people who just don't know the category. And sometimes it's other physicians and scientists. It's like, holy shit, now I got to fight you guys too. So it's just weird how, especially the word supplement. The word supplement seems to bring up the worst in some people. It's like, oh, it's a supplement. And I'm thinking, hey, if you're giving your kid Cheerios, that shit is fortified. That's a supplement. If you're drinking milk, it's fortified with vitamin D. That's a supplement. We're arguing about delivery systems. So for you, hey, it's okay if they put it in food, but if it's in a capsule, oh my God, that's so bad. It's like, it's the same shit.
Exactly.
I never thought of it that way.
I'd never thought of it that way. That's so intelligent.
I'm gonna steal that argument. So,
absolutely.
Let's get to the testosterone booster category. Yeah. So I know. So I'm nuanced on the subject. Whereas before you say anything, I'm a science pragmatist, not a science purist. So I want to hear what you have to say. So my theory is there are ingredients that have shown endogenous increases in testosterone. The problem is a lot of the results, other than taking anecdotal blood work, a lot of the studies are done in sarcopenic elderly people. For example, Prima V, which is a shilajit extract, I believe, 20% increase in total and free test. I believe it was a smaller study, 60 or 70 people. Mm-hmm. And so they had a control group, well-designed study. And then you have the D-aspartic acid, which, you have pro and cons. Some are big, some are little. 40% increase in total. I don't believe they got the free test on that one. My opinion on testosterone boosters is more of an environmental theory and not a direct anabolic theory. So my opinion is the reason we take health supplements, right, like vitamins, minerals, beyond just not dying, is because a healthy body processes things better. A healthy body with adequate, liver enzyme levels, adequate cholesterol levels, you're going to operate better. So if you have a supplement, and I always say this, I will never make a steroid claim for a natural test booster, but you have a supplement that provides a modest 20% increase in testosterone. Let's put that in layman's terms. If your testosterone's at 100 and you take that supplement, it goes to 120. That's still better, but is it going to lead to anything great environmentally? It'll lend something. Whether it's measurable, I don't know. Whereas if I inject testosterone, this is where I get mad at people, just like steroids. If I inject testosterone, depending on how much I inject, I go to 1,000, 10,000, 50,000, right? So you cannot make the drug claim for any supplement. You just can't, because steroids are that damn effective. So my thoughts on test boosters is, are they the end all be all? No. Do they provide an environment that will lend to the ability to perform better? Potentially, I say yes. What say you?
No, I like the way you've walked that through. Let's deal with the 20% increase. So if you have if your testosterone is, let's say 600, let's say it's in the middle, 600 nanograms per deciliter, 20% increase is 720. Is that physiologically meaningful? Maybe, maybe not. Probably. Would there be anything measurable? I don't know. From 600 to 720? I don't know. And here's the caveat. Those changes are acute. They go up and they go down because of negative feedback. So it's not like you inject it and it stays at 720. It goes up and it goes down. And guess what? Aerobic exercise makes testosterone go up. Weight training makes testosterone go up acutely. Any exercise makes testosterone go up acutely. If we go back to the 1990s, a gentleman by the name of Bill Kramer, he did studies looking at...
Kramer's the man.
Yeah, he did some of the... Here's what's interesting. He did some of the key studies looking at different weight training intensities and loads and the acute response vis-a-vis testosterone and growth hormone. So what he found in general, and I'm going to sort of summarize it, is higher volume weight training, meaning lower weight but higher reps, tended to produce greater increases in testosterone and I believe growth hormone. Yes. And then when you did the heavier weights, lower volume but heavier weights, it didn't produce as much. And I remember reading these studies way back when, and I'm thinking, okay, you know what? That doesn't matter, because you can get and I'm dealing just with hypertrophy. You can get hypertrophy with both. So what exactly is the claim being made? What a lot of muscle magazines did at the time, because I wrote for a lot of them, is that they said, hey, if you want hypertrophy, you got to do high volume stuff. And I'm thinking, but low volume stuff, high weight stuff also induces similar hypertrophy. So when we're dealing with the skeletal muscle hypertrophy issue, I think the T boosters don't do anything. So people say, well, why don't you steel man the argument that they're good for you? I'm like, okay. When you look at the data on T boosters, it seems that if you get older males who are hypogonadal, that it actually might help them, not so much with skeletal muscle, but they seem to feel better. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah. Feeling better is a good thing. However, and this is the caveat, if you're an older hypogonadal male, you're going to your physician for TRT.
You're getting TRT.
Yeah, you are not taking Fedosia Gressis, Tomcat Ali, and what's the other one?
Huberman is going to send you hate mail.
Yeah, Huberman's so full of shit with this stuff.
He is so I didn't realize. So I'd hate to take this ADD. Do you have ADD like us? You seem to be on the spectrum. Anyway, so Huberman, I was listening to him. I'm like, I didn't really fact check his stuff. Then he started talking about supplements. And when he came out with the test booster one, I was like, this guy's full of shit. And so then I looked at some of the other shit he said, and I delved into some of his cold plunge data. He's quoting the worst fucking data, and he's cherry picking data to support his views on a lot of stuff. Now, is he a net positive for science? Absolutely. Absolutely. But we need to be honest, intellectually honest, that some of the shit he says is out of control. Like his supplement science is so bad. And he came out with a supplement line, of course.
Yeah. Well, you hit the nail on the head. When he talks about exercise and nutrition and supplements, it's outside of what he really knows.
He's an eye doctor.
I mean, it's funny. If you do a Google search of his research, it is all physiology of the eye. So there's that issue. And I have noticed that he does much less of that lately. He's not touching nutrition and exercise as much because it tends to be, wow, this is really some weird. It's almost, there's a naivete to how he interprets research. It's almost like a student reads an abstract and they're like, holy shit, if I sit in cold water for 4.3 minutes, fat oxidation goes up and I should be able to lose fat. It's like, no, that's actually not what the data says. Now
we could spend another 10 hours on brown fat and its application in fat loss in human beings. Isn't it located like right here, and in adults it's like minuscule? Like you're active.
Yeah, it's so small that it's meaningless. It's like going to your doctor and complaining about the pimple on your ass when you have pancreatic cancer. It's like, yeah, doctor, I got a pimple on my ass. Oh, hey, buddy, you got pancreatic cancer. So people worry about these tiny things. Now, the T-booster thing, I have one last comment to say about it, is that it doesn't matter if it's Huberman or someone else selling it. And in fact, I think Jocko now is selling a testosterone.
I sell a Prima V based and I sell a D-aspartic acid based, but I'm honest in my assessment.
Yeah.
I'm not selling it as a steroid.
The way they're selling it is that it's targeted towards young males who obviously that's the nut demographic you want, and that it will create this anabolic environment. I'm thinking young males it's not going to help young males. But Mark, is it sexy to market it to the 65-year-old male who could be hypogonadal? I mean, does anyone give a shit? I mean,
honestly, our sales are mainly to dudes over 30. It does have at least an anecdotal, increase in libido. Whether that's from the ancillary ingredients that we put alongside the T boosting ingredients, whether that's for whatever, there's human data. We have numbers. So if I'm going to be in that category, I'm going to be intellectually honest. Am I taking it? I'm on TRT. No. If you're on TRT, it's like throwing newspaper in a forest fire. You're not doing anything. But I think the key to supplement sales is you have data, you have this, you have that. I know you have to sell things, but you have to be intellectually honest. And I know you have to use hyperbole to sell things. I understand that. Like, and I've done it, but when it comes to testosterone boosters, I think we need to, again, it puts a stain on the industry when we make claims that are not even close to being substantiated by any sense of science. And that's why when I talk about Insurgent, which has Prima V, I'm like, just as a footnote, we interpret the data, just like the original data on branched amino acids were on wrestlers. I mean, it's like when we came out with Extend back in 2004, till we funded that study with the Weider Research Group and College of Charleston, Dr. Timothy Sheet, we really had nothing but, wrestling. Like we had a small study on wrestlers and we interpreted the best we can. But then the problem with studies is then you fund a study and people are like, well, of course it's going to say that you funded it. Like who else is going to fund a study on healthy young males? And that's why we use two groups. That's why we use Stepani and we use Sheet, because they were working independently of each other. We wanted to reduce the chance that there'd be any weirdness, that there'd be any people who'd call us out. It's like, hey, talk to them. Like they were working independently of each other. How collaborative studies work, obviously. Mm-hmm. And that's why I thought it was such a brilliant design, because it was I thought it was hater proof. I'm like, whatever the results would have came out, they came out in our favor, obviously with our interpretation of what we thought would happen. But no matter what the results would have been, I would have put them out there. Like it was good. Yeah. So that's my opinion on science. And science, again, but I want more studies on branch chains. I'm not funding anymore. I've already had a couple $100,000 for it, but no more branch chain studies from Mark Lobliner. I did my one. And I always tell people, I'm like, oh, disprove it then. I'm like, you can't afford to disprove my study.
I think where the supplement industry gets really the the short end of the stick, besides a lot of other shit, but like it's nature's medicine. Like supplementation actually helps avoid chronic illness, disease, helps stave off sarcopenia and those sorts of things. And I just wish we could get to a point in society where instead of people like, oh, it's a supplement, like vitamin D is a supplement. Are you telling me vitamin D doesn't work? We supplement vitamin D to avoid all sorts of problems. I mean, Mark used it to kill his YouTube channel, but but I just don't understand why. And I do understand why, but since we're keeping this on YouTube and everything like that, this is more of an eating rants type thing. Like why the healthcare system has made it so supplementation is almost seen as like this shit that barely works, and when it does, it's bad for you. It's almost how it's like viewed, right? But meanwhile, proper supplementation, especially in a food environment that we're in America now, where it's very, very, very low nutrition, extremely high calories, those sorts of things that cause a lot of systemic inflammation, those sorts of issues. I would think that we should be looking for the most cost-effective way to get people healthier and especially maintain their immune system, those sorts of things, which would be the stuff based off Ayurvedic medicine that's been around for thousands of fucking years, which is basically sports nutrition is based off Ayurvedic medicine. And I wish we could get to the stage where when we see people like, Jose here, thousands of studies all showing very positive things, and it's still crazy. Like creatine is likely the most studied substance in the fucking world, almost. Like it really is. I mean, when it comes to health and nutrition, it's likely the most studied compound in the world. And as Mark says, everybody should take creatine. Everybody should, because you're not going to get enough of it for it to be beneficial just from meat and fish. That's where it comes from. So I just where do you think we could, how do you think we could bridge that gap? Like, how do you think we could bridge the gap into making people realize that this is a lot more about healthcare than about like big muscles sometimes,
Yeah, no. Again, it's sort of the analogy of we're the 300 Spartans, and then there's a million Persians trying to kill us. You're going against a million Persians, figuratively. As I was alluding to earlier, I'm not a science purist. So when people say foods first, supplements second, my view of that is they're all consumable. There shouldn't be a hierarchy because nobody doesn't eat food. We all eat food. It's sort of, it's a given. So to me, even though I'd say 99% of people you ask in the science world, whether it's nutrition or exercise, it's like, fix your diet, then take a supplement. And I take a very pragmatic view. I'm like, do both. But you know what? Diet is much harder to fix than taking a supplement. In fact, I would argue based on the data that you don't have to fix your diet at all for certain supplements to work. In fact, almost all the studies on creatine did not change the diet. Wow. So you could have a shitty diet, take creatine, and guess what? You'll get stronger, you'll put on some lean mass, and you'll just be better off in the long run. Wow. So to me, it's all the same thing. Everything that is consumable, I treat as one sort of, big bag of stuff. So, if let's say for breakfast, I usually work out in the morning. So my breakfast, oddly enough, is just a protein shake, but I consider it a meal. It's still calories, still protein. Then I have a typical Asian lunch and dinner. You can make fun of my Asian food, Mark, if you want to have rice, meat, vegetables.
We always get sushi. It's a thing. It's a sushi.
That's right. And then for dinner, I'll have rice, meat, and vegetables, or we'll go out and get Mexican food or something. But I think it's important, and I think part of the mission of ISSN is to show that there are some benefits. And you mentioned vitamin D. It's like, okay, well, being out in the sun is great. If you can't be out in the sun and you live in frickin' Seattle, Washington, take some vitamin D supplements. These supplements are just as important as eating food. And as you said, some of the food that people have access to tends to be very nutrient sparse, but very high in calories. So if you could make up for it by taking, let's say, a multivitamin or taking omega-3 fatty acids or something, it's critically important. And so when I teach my sports nutrition class, I tell them, don't think of a hierarchy because all of us have to eat food. Don't say, fix your diet first, then take supplements. Like, do everything at once. The training analogy I give is, let's say you're training a football team, American football, not boring soccer. Your kids play soccer, Mark? Sorry.
Not anymore. No. I don't like soccer anymore.
So let's say you're training a football team and someone says, what's more important, lifting weights or doing sprints? I'm like, you do both. There's no hierarchy. Everything is important. So if you're someone who exercises and is looking for, better fitness, better health, eating food and taking supplements to me is the same category. Now, with that said, nothing beats exercise. Exercise supersedes everything. If you're not training, all this other stuff in a way doesn't even matter. In fact, when people say, hey, can you rank me a diet or what supplements you take? I'm like, what do you do for working out or training? Well, I don't train regularly. I'm like, well, it doesn't freaking matter what you eat. You need to train. Get off your ass and train.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. Well, I know that we've gone over the time you've given us, man. Thank you so much, Jose. You gave us a time frame. We're going to stick to it. Greatly appreciate, Alan, if you want to stay on for a couple minutes, kind of summarize things, that'd be great.
I do have one last thing to say, and
Please.
I want to quote the great Dr. Tom Sowell. And I think this actually applies to science, to life, to everything. One of his best quotes is, there are no perfect solutions. And I might be paraphrasing this. There are no perfect solutions. There are only trade-offs. So whether you decide to go on TRT or take a T booster, or you want to get as large as possible through bodybuilding, or you want to be as fast as possible during endurance training, it's all a trade-off. There are no perfect solutions. And I think if we all know that, life is grand. So.
Well, thank you so much, Jose.
That's outstanding, sir.
Oh, I love. Where can people find you?
Best place to find me,
Don't find me.
If they can come to my conference, which is June 18 to 20.
Let's go.
The ISSN conference. It is the 21st annual conference in Bonita Springs, Florida. Or they can find me on Instagram under SUPPHD. It's my paddling page. I post pictures of me racing. Or the ISSN, which is the official ISSN page on Instagram, or on Twitter. I love what you guys post on Twitter. Actually, I get most of my laughs reading what you guys write, just so you know. So,
thank you. We try.
To me, I think of X. Let's call it X. I think of X really as sort of a reality show, and I'm laughing. I'm drinking my coffee in the morning, laughing my ass. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's
that's hilarious.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, anyways, hey, gentlemen, thanks, guys, and I appreciate you letting me do this early in the day.
Thank you so much, Jose. We'd love to have you back on.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Take it easy, brother. Oh, shoot. Where'd he go? Uh-oh. There you are.
Whoa.
I removed you. No, you removed your thing moved over. And when I clicked, it clicked yours. Science. Yeah, that was awesome. So Jose is just, the thing is, like, what I love about Jose is he's science-based, but he isn't governed by science, and I think that's the beautiful thing, is that he's able to look at things through a common sense lens as well as a science lens. And a lot of times with science people, they simply live in the data, but they don't live in the real world. And Jose, despite the fact that he's literally the CEO of science, he has this way of just kind of marrying it with common sense, with actual real world applicability. And for those of you who follow Huberman, I think he's a great guy. I just want to kind of clarify what I said. But if you really delve into the stuff he talks about, not his guest, but himself, he gets into topics that aren't his wheelhouse. So it's kind of like me talking about dancing, right? Like, I can read up on dancing, but I don't really know dancing. So it really became glaring to me when Huberman started talking about supplements, and it was some of the worst information I've ever seen in my life. So that's where we were getting at. And Jose's not going to say it. I'm probably not going to say it as much as I want to. But within the exercise science community, Huberman is kind of a laughingstock. Just my interpretation of it, as he should be. But I think he's great in that he brings light to science. He has people thinking about science. He has people reading studies. He has people watching what they eat, thinking about their health more often. So he's a net positive, right?
Yeah, but he's way more positive than like a V-Shreds or something.
Yeah, but V-Shreds is a net negative. He's just about the money. Whereas Huberman is about the money, but I do think that man loves science. Again, like Jose said, he's like a kid who just reads the first study. He's like, holy shit, this is amazing. Let me talk about it. But he doesn't quite grasp the details of the data. So on that note, man,
so what is his supplement line on? I was trying to find his supplement line.
I think I don't know what it's called. I think he's selling like vitamins and stuff, from what I understand. I know he promotes some of them as sponsorships, which, by the way, we are self-sponsored here at Evening Rants, and I have an ad.
Yes, we are.
I have an ad to send us out with. We got Ambrosia back in stock at tigerfitness.com.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
It's in now because we're filming this now and putting it up later.
Yes.
So it's pretty awesome to have it back. And, that's why I want to avoid ever needing sponsorships for this show, because you inherently end up being biased and not being able to say certain things that, they might disagree with us. They might say, hey, our company is pro Pride Month. We can't make fun of Pride Month. Well, that's not cool. Then we can't be ourselves. No. So we just do our best to obviously promote what we promote and, say what we want to say and be ourselves. And that's why it's so critical that you support our companies, support Ambrosia. Alchemy and No Morbidity are the two main products for this show that you'll support. Yes, sir. Everything else involved. But man, it's been awesome. I know it's midday. It's different for us, so we don't have just all night to deal with. So Alan and I both got to go to work. Yep. It's a weird time, but I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much. Anything you want to add before I send us off with this ad?
No, well, again, the code Evening Rants at Tiger Fitness for both Alchemy and No Morbidity, but please do check out MTS Nutrition Whey. I don't know if you have it back in stock, but the peanut butter fluff will change your fucking life.
For good. Peanut butter cookies and cream is better.
Peanut butter cookies and cream is
peanut butter fluff sold for shit. You were the only one.
I love that shit.
Yeah,
I was the only one that liked it.
We had to pick and choose winners.
And get yourself a box of Outright bars. I highly suggest the cashew cinnamon donut. It is my absolute favorite, has been, and all the flavors are fucking phenomenal. But that one is it's just 5 ingredients, and 2, there is something about it. If you just set it on like the dashboard of your car when you're driving for like 5 minutes and let it heat up in the sun, and then it's like that gooey goodness. It is so fucking delicious. My mouth is watering right now. I gotta go get food. So,
all right, brother. Thank you so much. And I'm gonna send us off, man. I'll see you. See y'all tomorrow night.
See you tomorrow night.
All right.
Evening Rants is self-funded. You won't see us putting ads on here. But Alan and I, what do? We help people lose weight. We help people become healthier and better and more optimal, healthier lives. That is why we have these products that I created with Alan Roberts. One is Alchemy. Think about this as something that helps your body utilize carbs, help you to avoid the high insulin spikes, the blood sugar issues, longevity benefits. We also have No Morbidity. You see all these products like Ozempic, these harsh pharmaceuticals that people are having terrible side effects from. This blunts your appetite like no other and will help you lose weight. So these 2 products are ones that Alan created. But I will also point out, if you're looking at overall organ and total health, you're looking at Ambrosia Nectar. It is a delicious powder, and I'm someone who throughout my life, through hard training and genetics, has had high liver enzymes. A lot of you guys who might drink on the weekends, who put your body through stuff, and again, your liver filters pretty much everything. Liver health, organ health, heart health, all those things covered by Ambrosia Nectar. We also have the most delicious, top-selling plant protein in the country with Planta. Every Ambrosia product at tigerfitness.com is 10% off with coupon code Evening Rants. That is coupon code Evening Rants at tigerfitness.com. We want to help you reach your goals. And also, if you love what we do here, this is how you support us. We will not accept outside advertisers. We want to make sure that our opinions and our conversations are legit, are real, are not bought and paid for, that we don't have to be censored like the other podcasts who accept these things. We will not do that. That is why please go to tigerfitness.com, use coupon code Evening Rants, and pick up some Ambrosia today.